You all today and be part of the Project Invent community. I'm really thrilled to get to speak to you today, and I promise you not that I try not to bore you too much with this keynote speech. Um, if I need to guess why I was invited to speak at this special event, it's perhaps that I've been on kind of both sides of the invention ecosystem. Once as a person who was guiding people through the invention process, and also as a person who's actively inventing myself. Before I jump into what that journey has been like, here it is. What I want to focus my talk today is about being a great problem solver, which I believe is a core part of why you're here, right? And I saw Project Invent's mission statement is about creating a generation of fearless and compassionate problem solvers. So with that statement in mind, I'll start by sharing a bit of my career journey so far. And I'll talk about how I learned to solve some of the most unique problems and what my experiences were like as a patent attorney helping inventors, and as a software startup CEO and entrepreneur myself being inventor. So here, let's start from my very first job out of college. My first job was working as a software engineer at a mid-sized IT consulting firm called Sapient. I helped build and improve on US Marine Corps logistics software system that was at that time coded in C++. I know you guys are not using that anymore. But as a young engineer, I quickly realized that the most challenging part of that job wasn't coding. It was about understanding customer requirements and finding ways to solve their problems. I have a fun story to share here. One time, our client, US Marine Corps, asked our team to code a mathematical algorithm that estimates fuel use by tanks so that they could have a better idea on how much fuel they have to carry to the battlefield. To solve this problem, we had to accomplish three main tasks. First, gather empirical data on fuel usage by tanks. Second, make a mathematical algorithm using that collected data. And third, coding that algorithm into the software system. The hardest part by far was the first task. I mean, if you ask any typical software engineers or any software engineers out there, how many of them would say, yes, I already know how to gather empirical data on fuel usage by tanks? That doesn't happen a lot. And I had to be that fearless problem solver here and solving that problem no one had tackled before. And we interviewed various subject matter experts and spent lots of time researching about how to measure changes in fuel usages by vehicles in different terrains. The end result, we made our own hardware system using a flow meter, a GPS, a rugged laptop that can be connected to each tank to measure changes in fuel usage while it's being driven over different terrain types. I even had to fly to a Marine Corps base located in 29 Palms in California and connected our hardware system to tanks myself. I mean, this experience became one of the most valuable lessons for me as a person and as a professional. Making this fuel measuring hardware system wasn't a typical software engineering task that I signed up for, but I really embraced the problem that my customer was facing and stayed curious and creative in finding ways to address that problem. And then I joined the US Patent and Trademark Office as a patent examiner because I was intrigued by the opportunity to marry my engineering background with something completely foreign to me, law. First, maybe you'd be kind of interested in learning about what patent examiners do. Did you know that Thomas Jefferson was the first patent examiner in the United States? Patent examiners are federal government employees working for US Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO. And those examiners decide which inventions are useful, new, and not obvious to be patentable, meaning they could actually grant you patents, right? Once you submit your patent, your invention idea to patent office, they're the ones who review and then reject or grant and issue patents for you. For example, your laptop is protected by a bunch of patents, right? There could be a battery-related patent, a unique graphical user interface design patent, a keyboard-related patent, or some display-related patents. Patent examiners review patent applications related to those battery, graphical user interface, keyboard, and displays, and determine whether those ideas should be granted as patents. And my career in patent law field started from this patent examiner job, and it continued over a decade. During that time, I became a patent attorney at a larger law firm and moved to become an in-house patent counsel at HP, that laptop company. And throughout the patent law career, I worked very closely with inventors. My passion was to help them clearly articulate the usefulness and novelty in their ideas so that they could obtain patent rights to their invention. And working with inventors inspired me to find a problem that really needs to be solved and to become an inventor myself to solve that problem. And that moment came about 5 years ago when my co-founder, Ramya Pisset, and I co-founded a patent analytics software startup called Bluefoot. So when we started Bluefoot, we just had a really cool idea. No prototype yet. We had to make this idea to a tangible capability that people could use. And what was our invention process like? We had a lot of what we call thinking couch sessions, just between her and me, which just mean a fun name for brainstorming sessions. And we made a wireframe of what we think a customer would want. And wireframes are like Visio diagrams demonstrating what the graphical user interface would look like. And we showed those wireframes to our former colleagues who were working at Google at the time. They loved it. And we naively thought that their positive feedback was sufficient to proceed to making a prototype. And I feel really vulnerable sharing my next story, but I'm going to share it anyways, because I think it's an important lesson, and I would love all of you to take this lesson to heart too. So here it is. So when I share our early prototype to a larger client base, we received mixed feedback, and some were honestly hard to take. The feedback was that our prototype was a mere data dump with lots of cool graphics and charts, but it didn't give answers. Our customer wanted a solution that bridges the gap between the data and actionable insights that come from the data. But this was probably the best feedback that we needed at the time, right? We pivoted and kept iterating on our solution that focused on giving answers with data, not a data dump that no one understood. So let's go back to Project Invent's mission statement again. I think being a fearless problem solver here means fearlessly asking for feedback on the problem you're solving and how you're solving it. And being fearless about feedback is extremely difficult and vulnerable thing. But trust me, it gets better with practice, right? Ask for feedback, listen, and iterate on your solution, and you do that over and over again. At our company, Bluefoot, we have a set of core values we live by. Our favorite one, but also most difficult one to live by personally is delete ego. And ego is what makes it hard to take criticism. And it somehow finds ways to creep up on us at the worst timing. When it feels difficult to take not so positive feedback, take a deep breath and think about this. Delete ego and focus on how much better your solution would become with what the other person is about to share with you. Also, be a compassionate problem solver. Have compassion for clients you're solving problems for and people who you are impacting with your invention. This really resonates with me as well. As you can see in our Bluefoot core values here, one of the lines says, understand people. To be a great problem solver, you need to be genuinely curious about the people you're interacting with and the problems they face. And being a fearless, compassionate problem solver will equip you with a core skill set you need to succeed in anything you do. I hope you all have a great time in the breakout sessions with the volunteers and wish you the best of luck in the journey ahead. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your story and really emphasizing this idea of how important feedback is, not just in thinking about patents and inventions, but also in growth and development too. We have a few minutes, so if anybody has any questions that they want to ask Rachel, you can throw them into the chat if you'd like. I know I feel like I have my gears spinning. And thank you for also sharing the piece of, the vulnerability aspect of feedback too, because it's not the easiest thing to take, but it is super impactful to create these wonderful inventions.
Very true.
All right. So also, if anybody wants to ask a question, feel free to use that little hand raise.
Yeah, I get a question here. How did you choose to become an attorney after being an engineer? So my engineering experience started as I said, as a kind of IT consultant. I don't know what they call it nowadays, but it was programmer. But I also consult for the clients that we serve. And being a consultant, you kind of switch between projects. Like 6 months here, and then you move to the next project another 6 months. And I really wanted to kind of build my own specialty at that time. I think that's why it kind of really inspired me to choose a patent legal direction and join USPTO and really kind of make some specialized field of my own. But looking back, I think it was a great choice. So I have another question from Alexis. Can you tell us a little more about what Bluefoot does? So if you go to bluefoot.ai, that's what we do. And in a nutshell, it's a patent data analytics software company. So we marry patent data with rest of market intelligence, like financial data, right? So like corporate tree data, revenue data, investment data of companies globally. There are about 50 million companies we track in our data system. And then based on the kind of insights we gather by analyzing this 50 million company data in terms of patents and other financial indicators, we give answers to our clients. And currently we serve IP market, but also government market and the financial market.
Great questions.
Thank you. Great questions.
All right. Any final questions for Rachel? All right. Well, Rachel, thank you again so much for sharing your story. Really appreciate you being here, for sharing your insight. And I think it's the perfect segue to talk about feedback and our next steps. So everybody, please give a round of applause to Rachel. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So that's going to lead us into the action component of idea review, which is really exciting. So for this portion of the event, we are all going to work together and we're going to go in breakout rooms. So as we're preparing for these breakout rooms, we're going to think about this overarching idea of feedback. As we said, as you've heard, it can be difficult to receive feedback sometimes. You came up with these awesome ideas, and I mean, I'll be honest, I don't like people telling me that they don't like something that I did or I could do it better, but it's really part of the process. We all have different backgrounds. Our volunteers have some really wonderful experiences. So the insight that they're giving you through this feedback is really to elevate your projects, to have you reflect on those next steps and those changes, because as we said, especially in the design process, it's almost never that you're going to create your invention from your first idea. There's always going to be some iteration of it, some changes being made, which really makes it stronger and more impactful. So while we're in these breakout rooms, you're going to interact with your volunteers, and we'll be popping around too. Fellows, you'll see that on the list. Your teams might be in the same room. They might be split up. So you can also have the ability to switch in between as well. So we're going to choose our rooms. We're going to do just some introductions. And then each team is going to have their video played, and then they're going to get about 10 to 15 minutes to ask questions about the feedback, to really have the conversations with your volunteers. Take advantage of it, because this is a really cool opportunity to speak with these awesome individuals. And then we'll help with the timing, and we'll all come back together for that reflection. So while we're in the breakout rooms, as I said, introductions, we're gonna have, after the introductions, we're gonna have just another quick convo of when you were, for the volunteers, when you were a teenager in high school, something that you wanted to create or a cool invention idea that you might have now that you want to share. And then, as I said, we're gonna give each team time to ask those questions. Now, if your team still has time in your slot, feel free to continue those conversations, and then some of our volunteers can even share a little bit about their professions before we call you back. All right, and before we go into the breakout rooms, this is for our student teams. We'll drop this into the chat in the rooms for you, but these are just some prompts. We know sometimes it can be tricky starting these conversations, especially with meeting new people. But these are just some prompts that might help you, whether it be to clarify an idea, to dig a little bit deeper, to think about new possibilities or next steps. So an example of a question that you can ask if you want something clarified is, something that we feel unclear about is, can you tell me more? Maybe it's based upon the feedback that you got from volunteers already, or just something you've thought about. And then thinking about new possibilities. I really like that our product can do this, but we've been thinking about trying this and getting feedback on that, because maybe your initial idea has pivoted already, even from receiving the written feedback or just through the ideation phase. Or thinking about next steps. We want our product to do blank. What do you think we should be working on for those next steps? All right, does anybody have any questions so far before we go into breakout rooms? All righty. Okay, so these are the breakout rooms. As you can see, there are 8 of them. We're going to open it up in a few minutes, and we're going to allow you to choose your own room. So that means you can see in room 1, Katie Mino's team's Project Pickle in group 2. Anybody, whether you're joining as a team or individual students, you'll click breakout room number 1. And then we have our wonderful volunteers, Killian, Clea, and E, in there, and you can choose room 1 as well. I think that's pretty clear, but I don't want to assume. Does anybody have any questions about going into their breakout rooms? No? All right, so I'm going to give everybody just another minute or so to note which room you are in. Okay, and we're going to start opening those up. Yeah, and you can see, so there was a little shifting. Some of the teams, you may have watched their videos already and given written feedback, or you might have a new team in your room. And that's also why we are playing these videos in real time, so that we're able to get that additional feedback as well. All right, cool. So we're going to open those breakout rooms now and get started. So feel free to join 1 through 8. And Mike is going to stay in this room, and I'll be popping around. If you need any assistance, feel free to message us. And if you need assistance figuring out what room you're in, just let us know. Carter and Moho, what's your team name?
Team 1.
Team 1. Let's see. And who's your teacher?
I'm jumping around. Miss K, Miss Tabby.
Which room is it?
So you guys are going to your team 1, I believe.
Yeah,
You're
okay,
in
what team?
room
Which
4.
are we? Room 4, thank you.
Room 4? Okay. I joined the
All right.
Thank you
I
so
just
much.
wanted to say thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thank you so much. Very much appreciate your time and for you speaking to the students.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was really great. Thank you, Rachel.
yeah, nice meeting you, Mike. So I could just hop on any of the rooms here.
Yeah, I know you got the spreadsheet, so feel free to pop into any of them. I'll be popping around as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And if
See
you need
guys
to head out before we come back to the main room, that's totally fine too. I'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Mike. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Great job, Carrie.
Thanks. We're doing it.
Yeah, we're rolling.
All right. I'm gonna pop in. It's 1:33 now. Okay. I'll be back. Are you cool staying here?
Oh, yeah, I'll be here.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mike.
Yep.
I've always been an artist. I paint, I draw, I do ceramics. So I guess inventing in terms of art projects was what I would have done in high school. Killia?
Yeah, I'm actually a potter, so we have something in common. But in high school, actually, I was really into coding. And so I think I wrote my first algorithm in high school. And this was a really long time ago, but I started building databases. Back in high school. I was back coding Logo. I don't know if you remember that in BASIC, and this is Fortran. I'm really dating myself. Anyway, none of those languages make any sense now. I don't think even that they are taught. COBOL was my favorite because COBOL was made by a woman. So,
additional safety features, but I think like leveling up and seeing what's out there and really making your product unique, coming from the perspective of whether it be, specifically for women, specifically for kids, specifically for high schoolers, specifically for crowded, traffic areas, I think would be really interesting. I had a lot of questions technically on the e-sticky side, and then I thought the Canvas calendar was also interesting and probably viable, but those are just my high level initial thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, go ahead. Go, Steve.